Okay, this is something I've been thinking about discussing for a while. I had not really seen it front to back. I'm not sure ever, but I had seen quite a few clips, and I did have some thoughts on this particular subject matter. Now, what I'm talking about is the Scream of the Shalka. I'm aware it's a little dark in here, but it's also Halloween, so let's pretend to make it spooky. Okay. Anyway, the Scream of the Shalka, if you aren't familiar, was the 40th anniversary webcast, which was put out by the BBC, written by Paul Cornell, and starring Richard E. Grant, who also played the Great Intelligence in the 11th Doctor's era. Richard E. Grant plays the Doctor. He plays the Ninth Doctor, not the Ninth Doctor you probably know, but a Ninth Doctor. And this webcast was put out to celebrate the 40th anniversary and try to put out something new for Doctor Who and explore the program, which at the time was pretty much dead. We weren't getting new televised Doctor Who in any form. Now, there are a few things which I think are important to say about Scream of the Shalka. I'm going to keep this pretty short because I want to avoid a lot of major spoilers and just touch on the core concepts. First off, let's look at Richard E. Grant's Doctor. We can look at Allison as a companion, and some of the more villainous forces in the program. Now, Richard E. Grant is pretty good as the Doctor. He's not one of my favorites, just from this performance, but I can definitely see where, especially if he had been in live action, he would have grown on a lot of people and could have been really iconic in the role. Now, Russell T Davies, who brought back the program in 2005, did not use Richard E. Grant, even though he had played the role 2 years previously. This is understandable. Russell T Davies would have wanted a fresh start, and was pretty much the idea of the revival, that you build from the classic series, but you don't hold on to too much baggage. And the way the new series treated it was that the Scream of the Shalka pretty much just didn't happen, or wasn't referenced in any form. Now, Russell T Davies, in an interview with Doctor Who magazine, actually said that he didn't cast Richard E. Grant in the role, or even offer him the part, or audition him, because he felt that he had been phoning in his performance as the Doctor. I don't so much see that in Scream of the Shalka. I think a lot of the scripting doesn't call for a particularly high energy performance. His Doctor is very much a sort of cold, but cold because of deep pain. A hardened Edwardian gentleman, very similar to the first in personality, and the eighth in attire and how he carries himself. So somewhere between the two, and actually in both aspects, because this Doctor does occasionally let a deep sort of emotional depth show, where you can see where he's probably within this incarnation been very different before some sort of tragedy or a deep pain. It appears he's lost a companion, possibly even a love interest. We don't get a lot of details, but it's implied that if this had gone on, we would have maybe found out a little bit more. Or possibly not. Maybe they wanted this to remain a mystery that we would allow our own imaginations to fill in. Now, yeah, once again, Richard E. Grant's great as the Doctor. He has a lot of dark and cold moments. He also has some really funny moments, especially when he's getting really into the adventure. And you can feel that he would have really grown into the part a lot over time. Very much felt like an early Capaldi, which is not a bad thing. Now that I've talked about him, I'm going to touch a little bit on Allison, as played by Sophie Okonedo. Now, you already know that Richard Grant was in Doctor Who as the Great Intelligence, or Dr. Simeon. But Sophie Okonedo, if you're not familiar with the name, actually played Liz 10 in Matt Smith episodes as well. She was in the Pandorica Opens. Anyway, she was, and the Beast Below. She was the future queen who was on the Starship UK. Great actress in that, regardless of how you feel about the episodes. She gave a great performance. In this, she is really solid. There's not a lot to say about her. She's got a relationship with this boyfriend who is clearly in love with her, and she clearly loves him, but their goals in life are a little bit different. She kind of wants to get out and see the world, and he just doesn't. And she's very much drawn to the Doctor and what he represents, and the sort of freedom and newness, adventure that he can bring to her. And they quickly hit it off. Honestly, a bit too quickly. Like, I'm fine with the fact that she wants to go off with him and they save the day together, but it feels that the way they talk to each other by the end of the serial, it feels that they've literally known each other for several years. They just, like, they say things like, you know, I wouldn't do that. Like, it feels a little pushing belief as far as their relationships developed. Though I was really enjoying their chemistry, and I think had they just slowed that down and had more stories to tell, they could have. They were aware they could only make the one, so they just kind of crammed a lot of character development or a relationship development in there. Still really liked her. Now, speaking of villainous aspects, I say villainous aspects of the program because, first off, I'll talk on the actual villain. The actual villain are the Shalka, which are very similar to the aliens in A Quiet Place. They are not particularly drawn to loud noise, but they are sensitive to it, so they do not like humans making loud noise. They sort of watch them, and if they make anything irritating, any loud sounds, they turn up the television too loud, they will attack. And they also communicate through screaming. They are basically big, hard exoskeleton bugs full of goop, and they pretty much have that same sort of colony dynamic you typically see in a bug alien invasion story. They are very well designed. The screams are effective as far as the auditory experience of the program, and the way that we look into the fact that they are the limiting factor for so many species, and that's why a lot of species don't really reach intergalactic level, and it's even explained that they are the most dominant species in the universe, according to this, and that they inhabit 80% of planets, and those are just the ones that appear uninhabited because they wiped out the population. They are really good villains. I wish they would be in main continuity Doctor Who, so that we could see how other Doctors might interact with them and the kind of horror that they could bring to the screen in live action. Now, overall, it is a pretty standard invasion story. And for that, it's done really well. They are a new feeling concept, and they genuinely are scary. Now, once again, I said villainous concepts or villainous aspects of the program. Derek Jacobi, who would later go on to play the Master in main continuity, plays in a robotic version of the Master. Well, I say robotic, it's either robotic or cyborg. It appears he's a normal Master. He's unable to leave the Doctor's TARDIS for some reason and is acting sort of like a servant to him, sort of in the way Miss Quill behaves in Class, if you've seen that spinoff. And then at one point his face opens, and it's revealed that he has a robotic face underneath. Yeah, later on, he explains that he was offered a chance at redemption by the Doctor, and he was there to help the Doctor get over this trauma, or this tragedy, which I touched on a little bit with the companion analysis and the doctor's analysis, where he's gone through this traumatic event. Not the Time War. It feels like it's something much more personal, like he's lost a companion, someone who trusted him. Now, Derek Jacobi gives a great performance as the Master. He's funny, he's charming, he has a great sort of dynamic with the Doctor, where it feels very much like a Roger Delgado, John Pertwee situation. And he also plays well off Allison. He feels like he would have been a good part of the cast, and if they had gone forward, there would have been a lot of stories to tell with him. Now, it is unclear if he is a robot who was built to look like and think like the Master, or possibly the Master was very close to death and didn't have regeneration, and the Doctor altered him, or something altered him cybernetically, so he appears to be robotic. That is unclear. Derek Jacobi still gives a great performance. I think that's probably a big part of why Russell T Davies cast him in Utopia as the character who was ultimately revealed to be the Master. He is very good in the part. And I would have been interested to see if they would have explored his background, how he got in this situation, or maybe they wouldn't have touched on it at all. I do read it as this story is a continuation of what came before, so it is implied that he is either a cyborg or a robotic copy, not that the Master has always been a robot. That just wouldn't jive well with me. Or gel well with me, but overall, I really like this serial. I think it's better than the TV movie, though I prefer Paul McGann in the role of the Doctor, and it is better than either the Infinite Quest or Dreamland, which were also animated. Now, I think that's about all I have to say. The animation is okay. The edges are pretty sharp with a lot of things, and it's only a little bit worse than what you'd see in like the Power of the Daleks. I would recommend this, and I think it is really solid Doctor Who, even if it's not the Doctor Who of the main universe or multiverse, which we usually experience. You know what to do. Like, subscribe, and have a great day. Happy Halloween.